Hey guys, sorry, can I have your attention? Sorry, can I have your attention, guys? I'd just like to say it's 6 o'clock and we said we'd start streaming at 6. So I think we should try and start streaming, otherwise everyone will lose interest and stuff. But if you want to grab a beer, there's a cooler box there. Just grab a beer. If you want tea or something, it's at the back. But if you could come and try and occupy some of these seats, otherwise it feels like I'm miles away. They've set up the cameras so that I stand here, but if you could come closer, that'll be better. And then let me know if you can't hear me. Yeah. Right. Let's start. So what I'll do is just put, if you want to interrupt, just put your hand up and we'll interrupt. And so it's not there's no presentation, just here to chat, to try and tell you what it's about. I think what we found is that there's a core of people knew a lot of information because that's how it was working out. We set up these WhatsApp groups and Instagram and stuff like that, but not everything went out to the right people. If you're not on those things or if you're not on the group, then you don't know what's going on, right? So Warren said to me, hey, listen, it's, come and have a chat to the guys. Just tell them, let them ask questions, tell them what's going on and what we're trying to achieve. And that's really what this is about. We did the same in Gauteng, and it went down quite well. We went to St. Stithians at that higher ground place, and yeah, it was quite well attended. There were some good questions. People had, wanted to know what's going to happen, what happens with their kids at representative level and stuff. All good questions, and it's stuff that you probably have yourself that I hopefully can answer. I'll start off and I'll just talk a little bit, and then we can start the questions, because then you can start formulating what you want to ask. So Warren sort of sent this thing out, and it says, like, what is SAWP? Why was it formed, and et cetera, et cetera. SAWP, SAWP, South Africa Water Polo, that's what we've shortened it for. People have told me that's not a good abbreviation, but anyway, so it's what it is. So what we realized, and I'm sure a few of you have had the same frustration, is that the Federation, I don't want to keep naming SAWP South Africa or this thing because it sounds personal. It's not. It's about performance. We found that they were not doing a good job. We found that high performance was not attended to properly. Teams are going overseas without adequate training, and at the same time there's almost no development, so we don't have people getting exposed to the sport in areas where they had not had exposure before. And if you look at the demographics of what our membership is, there's a massive hole in that 30 to 40 year age gap, and that's people who just dropped off the radar straight after school in the last sort of 10 years. And we've got lots of people at school, we've got lots of people at masters, but there's a massive gap of like people in the last 10, 20 years who just got disenchanted with water polo. And if we look at it as hot-blooded South African sports people with the genetics that we've got in this country and the facilities we've got and everything that we've got, why are we so poor at international competition? So we looked at this lot, a bunch of mates, guys who love water polo, and we just said it's time to actually put our hands up and do something about it. The problem is it's not been easy because there's a vindictive bunch, and when you put your hand up, your kids no longer make teams. And I think that a lot of people experience that, and it's not a hearsay, it's the truth, it's what happened. So enough, in the position that I was in is that I actually had just finished a stint in administration with swimming, and I felt I've got nothing to lose. So I'll put my hand up, I'll be the target, I don't care. But I've also had enough of watching this go on, and I thought, let's try and make a change here. So that's what it is, and that's why it was formed. We formed a non-profit company. It's got 3 directors, nominee directors now. So it's Matt Kemp and Saida Adams and Rob, I forget Rob's surname, but a sports administrator used to be at UCT, Rob Wagner, in the rugby circles. And these guys just put their names to it, set the thing up, and the idea is and you'll get the notice of the AGM coming out probably on Thursday. Got an AGM at the Cape Town Invitational. We will elect elected directors, and we will adopt a memorandum of incorporation, which is like a constitution. And we've written that up. We've asked for public participation. We've called for nominations for directors. This thing's going to be run properly. And Matt Kemp is a sports lawyer, and he's done a lot of work with constitutions with cricket and stuff like that, so he knows exactly what best practice looks like, and we are using that. So any questions about why it was formed, how it's formed, anything like that? Is that all quite clear now? Yeah? Okay, then who's behind it, right? So there's a founding group of about 18 people on a WhatsApp group from all over the country. There's a couple of guys from Gauteng, Nelson Mandela Bay, from KZN here, and from Cape Town, and basically it started off with 2 or 3 people, sort of getting together and saying enough's enough. That was about November last year. Got a bit of momentum, and by about January, February this year, we had a group, the core group really, of about 18 people. It includes people, coaches. It is a diverse group. We've got people of women's coaches, men's coaches. We've got administrators, players, the whole lot. And that was who started this. But every one of us is a volunteer. No one's taken any money, and every one of us is prepared to step down if we're not elected. Only about 4 people have put themselves up on this board to be elected. The others have said they'll operate in the background. So it's not even going to be, it's not as if people are trying to get a land grab, as it were, and say, I want to run the sport and I want to get something out of it. It's not that at all. In fact, the guys it's the exact opposite. It's cost us all a lot of money, and some of the guys, it's actually cost them their children. For example, there's 2 or 3 guys whose children, their sons, daughters would have made national sides who are not eligible to be selected at the moment. And those guys have made sacrifices, but not only them, but their kids have done the same and decided that it was time for change. So it's not as if these guys have come in there to get something. They've actually sacrificed quite a bit. And I think when I see these guys, they play, 2 of the guys that I know, they play for Stellenbosch University. They've made SA under 16, under 18, SA under 23 if they chose, and they would have been, eligible for national sides, and they've all sacrificed that. So I really respect that. So what happens is to begin with, if you joined SA Water Polo, SAWP South Africa would not allow you to be selected for a national side. That's part of their constitution. If they want to change that, they actually have to put it in writing. So it's part of their constitution. We've heard quite strong rumors, and I don't know whether they're true or not, and I'm not going to say one way or another, that they will actually now allow dual membership. We've heard that. But I think what we've come to the conclusion is that we can no longer be trying to formulate our opinions and our decisions and our strategies around what they will or won't do. So let's go. So having formed that, what would be the plan, right? So how do you, so what does that mean now? So that means they took us to court. So we were taken to court, and we were told, you absolutely have no right to form any kind of a body. You have no right to administer the sport, nothing like that. But constitutionally, everyone has the right of association. Everyone has these rights. So how it really works is that you get a federation. The federation is the national federation, and you can only have one federation, and that one is recognized by a world body. So in our case, it's World Aquatics. World Aquatics recognizes a federation, and there are criteria that they have to meet. They have to be developing the sport. They have to have a strong constitution, anti-drugs. They have to do a whole lot of things that fit into World Aquatics constitution and how you run a sport in a country. If the government interferes with the federation, World Aquatics will ban them, because sport and politics are not supposed to be mixing. So the government can't actually interfere with this. This is actually, funnily enough, it's a World Aquatics recognition. When World Aquatics recognizes you, then SASCOC and the government and sports and everything else will follow and recognize you as the federation. Then you get what's called a body. And a body can be like we are a body. We can run and administer the sport of water polo for our members, but we do not have the right to award national colors. But we can do anything else. We can hold tournaments. We can send outbound or inbound tours. We can do any of that stuff. Run leagues, all of that sort of stuff. So The ultimate objective is to run the sport, not because we want to, but because the sport deserves to be run properly. So there's two, what I call headshots. A headshot is like the game's over. The whole thing's finished. The fight is dead now. The one is if we get recognized by World Aquatics, which we're in the process of making application. So in order for us to apply, we have to be able to demonstrate that we can run national tournaments. We've already had the Winter League, the Winter Series in Nelson Mandela Bay. There's a couple more that we want to run, like the Cape Town Invitational, the Joburg Invitational. We want to do a Currie Cup, a State of the Origin here in Natal. There's a few of these national tournaments. You have to demonstrate you can run leagues. You have to demonstrate you've got the most members. You have to demonstrate your constitution is in line with World. We're doing all of that stuff right now so that we can make application. World Aquatics will then judge which of the two bodies best serves water polo. Is it the current federation or is it SA Water Polo? And they will then decide, and then they will say that's the one that now runs the sport so if we get that, then that's a headshot, it's over. We run the sport, they don't, and that's how it works. The other one is if they agree to allow us to run the sport. So those are two initiatives that if we love the sport and we want to do it because we're wanting to do it for the benefit of the sport, we have to pursue both of them. As much as it might pain us to say we have to be in negotiations, we actually have to. So we are, and I'm in negotiations and I'm pursuing it vigorously, and that is ongoing as we speak. And part of the process is each part of the negotiating side, we have to have a mandate from our board, they have to have a mandate from their board, and we have to have what we're going to do and what we're trying to achieve. So that is in play, but it's not progressing at the rate that we want to. And at any stage, that can stop. That whole process can stop. So if you do something where you say, right, well, let's rely solely on that, where are you in 6 months' time when that process stops? You're nowhere. So we have to have a parallel process of saying, we're also going to pursue the World Aquatics application. That World Aquatics application, if there's two bodies that are equal, it's a very hard process to dislodge the incumbent, right? Why would World Aquatics change the governing body of a country when it's functioning? And there's another pretender comes along and says, no, we want to do a better job. Well, why would you do that? So one of the things that we've realized is that if you look at all the things that go on now, okay, so you look at schools, the IPT, schools is run by Schools Water Polo South Africa. That is the body that runs Schools Water Polo. They've now broken away from South Africa, and they are now an independent body, and they can decide who they want to affiliate to. So they can run their tournament under whoever's auspices they determine, and that was a recent change that they've made in their constitution. So that is no longer a federation-run tournament. It's the biggest in the world, I believe. It's a massive, massive IPT, is a lacquer tournament, but that is no longer under the auspices of South Africa. If you look at the leagues in Cape Town, Nelson Mandela Bay, I believe in Johannesburg, those leagues are no longer run by anything to do with South Africa. The invitationals are run under SA Water Polo and the Nelson Mandela Winter Series. So if you look at the tournaments, the leagues, Masters is run by SA Water Polo. If you look at all of the functioning water polo that's going on in South Africa right now, 80% of it is actually under the auspices of SA Water Polo and not much under South Africa. So that shows you where the momentum is swinging. And also, if you look at membership, it's around 1,800 or thereabouts. And in court, they said that they've got 130 members. So 130 versus 1,800, it's quite a substantial difference. But you've still got people who will keep that one alive because they've got the carrot of national colors. And so it's getting easier and easier to get your national colors because most of the guys are playing water polo somewhere else now. And so they're disqualified because under the Constitution, you can't represent from South Africa and therefore South Africa if you're a member of SA Water Polo. And that stopped some people from joining SA Water Polo, and at the same time it continues what's going on with from South Africa. So then it makes the whole process slower, and you're going to end up dragging out from South Africa's tenure of water polo in this country. Is this gone? Okay, it's gone. Yeah. And that's fine. I'm not going to tell you how to decide. I want you to be informed as to what that means for everything, for the whole community. This one. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that for anyone who was online who didn't hear it. So Warren's asking me to explain, is what we're doing, is it unusual? Is water polo breaking away from the governing body? Is it unusual? And the answer is it's absolutely not. In fact, I did a study in December, took the top 10 sides at the Olympic Games, at the last Olympics in Paris, and of those 6 are run independently. 6 water polo nations in the top 10 run their sport independently of aquatics, independently of swimming. And if you think about it, and this was the thing that I sort of came to the conclusion, swimming is much closer in reality to track and field than it is to water polo. Water polo and swimming happen to be in the same medium, and if that's the argument for putting them together, then why aren't squash and tennis together? Because they're in a court with a ball and a racket. That's much closer than swimming and water polo. I mean, water polo is a sport, swimming is not. You know, there are so many differentiators. If you take a swimmer and say to him, develop a national water polo program, you know, how are they ever going to see that they need to put people together that have training camps and that it's not just evaluated on the basis of a time? Swimmers love to see what your time for this distance or that. That's not a measure of how good a water polo player is. We know that some of our best players who aren't the fastest swimmers, it's not about that. And so there's a massive difference between water polo and swimming as a sport, but also as an administrative exercise. And it's the same. Why are all these aquatics disciplines together? It makes no sense to me, actually. If you were to say to me, develop a program for the diving or the artistic swimming, I'd have no idea what they need or how to do it next. And that's the same thing, because a lot of our administration is done by people who are not themselves players. And that's probably where we really think that we're going to add value, because a lot of the guys and girls on this board and a lot of the people who've put their names up to become directors are actually ex-players, coaches, administrators of water polo, and they know what it needs to actually succeed. You can't, I mean, I had the most wonderful conversation. You know, we've got very, very generous sports people in this country. I managed to, Jake White offered his valuable time to myself and Duncan Woods, and he said, come, we can talk about programs, developing national programs. And when you listen to what rugby does, that is, you will have seen on the weekend, we are absolutely the gold standard in team sport in rugby in this country. And we've got so many people who know exactly what's required to physically prepare you, you know, like your actual physical fitness and your strength and all of those things, along with the team sport aspects of it, tactics, all of those things, video analysis. You listen to what he does for preparation of rugby and how they build a program for rugby, and I just think it's almost foreign to any of us who have played water polo at an amateur level in South Africa. It's just not what we do, but there's a depth of knowledge there that's available to us for free. They want to help us. They'll help us. You just said, tell me what you want me to do, and I'll be involved. Now, it's a long answer to a short question, but I think it's a good one. You know, yeah.
So the federations that Warren's talking to, it's not sort of, doesn't have the same history as ours does in trying to break away. It's kind of almost an enlightened sort of setup where people are recognizing the need for an independent federation that can run a sport properly. So we're slightly different here in that we're fighting this battle. And although it's not unusual, as you say, Warren, it still now requires a lot of us, or a lot of you guys to dig in and push through. And that's the hard part, isn't it?
That's really the hard part, and you've got to ask who's being rational here. So Australia swimming and Australia water polo had a bit of a fight about it, but actually logic and rationality prevailed, right? Now, if you're holding on to power for the sake of money, or holding on to power for the sake of holding on to power, and you're realizing that you're not doing a good job, and the evidence is all around you, why are you still holding on to power? Why are you banning people for speaking out? Our Constitution specifically says anyone can take us to court. Any member of SA Water Polo, if they're unhappy with what's going on in SA Water Polo, they can take the directors to court. They can say what they want on social media, because they're either going to be right and we need to change, or they're going to be wrong and they'll be exposed for it. But why would you have a constitution that says if you take me to court, you are automatically banned? If you engage a lawyer, you are banned. If you associate with somebody who is banned, you're banned. How can, now, so I understand where we're saying, why are we fighting? But at the same time, you've also got to understand, who are you fighting? Because if they are not being rational, then the rational. No, but hang on, I need to be fair there because we are in a conversation now, and I'm hoping and praying basically that rationality now will prevail. We've already established the fact that we have the right to exist. I think that was, for a start, we set up an organization that we want to benefit the water polo community. We get named individually in a high court and taken to court. So I'm sitting there with my name on a high court roll, and I've got to go and defend myself for setting up an organization for the benefit of the water polo community. Now, that is an irrational response by the governing body. But once you get through that, now we've got the momentum that we've got. I'm seeing you. Now is the time for them to realize, okay, hang on a second, guys. Maybe these guys might do a good job. Maybe they actually will even do a better job. It's time to talk, and let's listen to their plans, And I'd love to tell you those as well. Yes, sir.
World Aquatics. Why would World Aquatics look at anything other than Swim South Africa? Because Swim South Africa, in terms of South Africa, in terms of Olympics, by the most successful federation. We've got gold medals. So that's the fight that you guys are up against. Just thoughts going through my head to then for them to say, well, you guys, small country, you already got golds. Why would we look elsewhere?
What makes you think we're a small country? How many people have we got in this country? 60 million. How many has Australia got? 20 million. We're not a small country. We're choosing from a very small population. And why is that? Because there's been no development at all in 30 years. None whatsoever. We are choosing our swimming and our water polo sides from 2 or 3 million people maximum. I was a swimmer. I've swum competitively at world championships and stuff like that. There is zero input from the federation when you swim. Zero. I had a conversation with a Olympic gold medalist and world record holder that came to see me and said, listen, what you've done with water polo, we want to talk to you. That person and the manager came. I'm not going to give genders and stuff. The swimmer and the manager came and sat with me and said, we have had enough of all of the stuff that goes on with Swim South Africa, and we need to understand what is it that you guys have done, how are you doing it, because it's time for us to look at it the same way. So whilst they might stand up in Parliament and say, look at all these medals, they've done nothing to help those swimmers get those medals. That's on Rocco. He's the guy who gets that. Sorry to name him, but if you look at coaches in this country, there's some spectacular coaches in this country. And you'll see it's the same names behind every single swimmer. And these are the guys who are making it happen. It's not through the wonderful programs that are being put in place by the federation, I can assure you. That's not what's... And so to answer your question properly, I'm coming to you, sir. To answer your question properly, why would World Aquatics look at it? They're going to look at it and say, who best serves the interests of the community that they purport to serve? If you've got 130 members and they've got 1,800, you run no tournaments, they run all of them. You run no leagues, they run all the leagues. Who should be the federation? That's going to be the criteria, and they've got them. Sorry, I'm going to ask this gent here. He's had his hand up earlier.
No, thanks. I wonder if you could clear something up for me.
Swim South Africa. Yeah.
So, schools, water polo schools South Africa has gone completely separate now. So, the registration for IPT is with schools, South African schools, not with Swimming South Africa. No. So it's a new link now. It's a new system to register. The same for KZN teams. now going to IPT will have to register via a link. Yes, to play at IPT. When it comes to national teams, that's a different story. And still, as the system works, so the under-16s that, or the teams that have gone to Zimbabwe and so on, and it was a planned tour to Australia in December, they all had to register, and the same with Singapore teams and all of that. They had to register with Swimming South Africa to be able to attend those events. So that is a separate, that's the old form, the old registration via KZN Aquatics if you're a KZN member and so on. Yeah. So that is what the Constitution of Swimming South Africa says. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So that's that self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm talking about. For the longer that situation prevails, the longer this takes to resolve. So that's what the headshot I was talking about. If every single person, and I'm not asking them to do this, but it's a scenario that you need to understand. If every single person took a principled decision, the game would be over today. It would be over. Because then you could go straight to World Aquatics and say, we've got all these registrations, they've got none. So therefore, there is only one body representing water polo now. But it's not practical. You guys won't do it. But bear in mind that that's what it takes. So for as long as that advice is going out, it's going to be a longer, drawn-out process. So it's so interesting. It's so interesting, this conversation. This is why we're having these conversations, because we had two parents in Gauteng at that meeting, and one was actually I'll tell you two stories. The mum stood up and said, listen, what is it about this representation? And what I'm going to say might actually irritate some people. She said, what is it about this representation that's the be-all and end-all? And we started talking a little bit about a guy like Roger Federer. Now, I can imagine very clearly, like if Roger Federer played Nadal in the first round of a big tournament and he got knocked out and they both played the best game of tennis of their life, Roger would be quite happy with that because he's about his game, self-improvement, being better today than he was yesterday. And that to me is a true sportsman, a true professional. And this is what this lady was alluding to. She said colors are it's flattery, because what happens, especially in a flux situation like this now, where some people have taken a principle. So let's go back to this point. Why do you want national colors? Because you can now say, I'm the best in my age group in the country. Is that still true in this current environment? Is that true? Because it might not be, because you've got these guys whose parents are on the committee right now who have taken a principled decision to say, right, we need to actually improve the status of water polo. We're going to take a step back to be able to take 10 steps forward. And there are a lot of people, there's 2,000 of them who have done that. Okay, and so what's going to happen now is that when you get your colors, I think it's diluted. And I also think it's diluted because when you go overseas, the results will show that it is diluted. So then if you're a true sportsman, and this is what this conversation was about in Gauteng, are you trying to be a better sportsman than you were yesterday? Because if that's your objective, then you're going to be improving and improving and improving until you're 30, whatever years and when you peak. And then afterwards, you're going to be playing the sport forever because it's about self-improvement and mastery. If you're about getting that blazer, will you still play when you get the blazer? And then what happens next year when you're not good enough and everybody else has caught you up or because you developed early or whatever? What are we teaching our kids? And that leads me to my second story. I'm going to go straight into it. We had this situation where the players at the Winter Series actually got prize money, right? This one girl, 16 years old, she gets her prize money and she donated it back to SA Water Polo. She said, I don't want my money, I want to donate it back because I believe in what you guys are doing. Now, you tell me what conversations are happening in that family's dinner table and breakfast table. What is that mum and dad saying to that girl about what's right, what's wrong, where's the sport going, what do you need to achieve, how long are you going to be participants? And what I would say to you guys is, I'm very much about the big picture. I'm very, very, very much about the big picture. And I understand that people want to achieve success at a certain age group and stuff like that. I'm 56 years old now. I think my major successes came maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago in sport, really, honestly. So it's worth waiting for sometimes. And if you've got a lifelong love of your sport, it's worthwhile. That's my view. And it's not a popular view, Warren.
So we all know that the last 4 teams that have gone to, and I'm talking about men's teams that have gone to major championships, World Cups and World Champs, haven't been the strongest side that we could have taken because of guys already being banned, etc., or taking the principle stand not to go. So in the last 4 major tournaments, 37 guys have gone that weren't even first string. Of those 37, 33 of them have registered with SA Water Polo. So the next side that does get chosen, and remember the ban that SSA currently has on people in SA Water Polo is their current constitution. They will not have, unless you're sending schoolboys, they will not have teams to take. Most of the SA under-20s that were at the tournament now have registered with us, with the SA Water Polo. Yeah. So yes, I hear you, and I'm one of those parents whose son, who's 15 years old, pulled out of the Zimbabwe tour on principle, because the conversation that the parents and the daughter had about the money was the conversation I had with my son, and I not managed to convince him. He made his own decision to not go to Zimbabwe and go on a tournament that cost 25,000 Rand, put together last minute. And once you sign up for those, bearing in mind I'm right in this phase. Once you sign up for that, 25 this year, 60,000 next year, 80,000 next year, 90,000 next year, no preparation, no planning, not the real team, nothing. So absolutely parents have to make that decision, and I think this is part of it is parents being informed to make that decision, to have the conversation with their children, and then they must decide. Nobody can force them to do anything. But as Robbie says, if everybody drew a line in the sand right now, it would be game over. So the longer that you feed the monster, the longer it's going to, and bearing in mind, there will always be 15 people who will go, I want my blue tracksuit that I can hang in my cupboard and have that photo on Instagram. And we've got to make that decision as the water polo community as to how long we feed the monster.
Guys, that is an unfortunate conflict that's going to prevail until this thing comes to an end. And I came from Zimbabwe. I left Zimbabwe at a time when there were farm invasions and stuff like that, and it was a very unpopular thing to be either abandoning the country or staying and putting up with it, or those were very, very awkward social conversations that everybody in that country was having at the time. Are you abandoning us? Are you doing a deal with the devil? That whole thing became very, very socially divisive, and I see that there's a potential for this. So what I would like to do, I'd like to propose to the communities that we have, is that you don't get into heated debates with each other, because it's going to be very hard to convince one person one way or another. I think what I'd like to do is put the information on the table, make your own decision. But what I'd like to concentrate on for us is what are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we doing for water polo? Because that, I think, is the positive side. And so if I can close this side off, can we move a little bit on to that? Are we good with that? Yeah. Yeah. Pete, do you want to just give a mic?
Sean, just to go one step back I think you might still be a little bit confused with RPT and Swim South Africa. So Swim South Africa in years gone past do not like RPT at all because it's a very successful tournament and they will not send their selectors there. So it takes place in December. If you know you're sending under 16s to World Champs, they send none of their selectors to it and you must come to their Curry Cup. So if you actually read what they've ever written in black and white, if you don't come to our Curry Cup, you will not be selected for a South African side to go somewhere. And I think, whilst we're all very worried for your kids, and rightfully so, you're under 15s, if you sign up with SA Water Polo, I believe actually that's dead. Because we were supposed to go on a polo tour, under 17 girls, SA under 17 girls, SA under 17 boys. Some of the boys that already pulled out that played World Champs under 16, they didn't go to the Curry Cup when asked to go and play as an under 17 team. But in fact, all of the girls were there. And just a case in point, my daughter played in the winter series and registered with South African Water Polo because I just wanted her to play as much competitive polo as possible. I had quite a few phone calls from parents saying you're committing suicide. And I said, well, I just wanted to play competitive polo. The administrators from Swim South Africa who were asking myself and Jane to organize the team to go to Australia as a South African under 17 were still calling me post the SAWP and they knew my daughter played. So I actually think that they've already overlooked this and gone, you know what, if we tell you to come to our Curry Cup because you want to make a South African side and you don't come, you can't make it. I don't believe, and I think if Duncan Woods was here, he'd back me up, that they will now exclude anyone who decides to play in an SAWP tournament. Because for that same reason, they would then now have to exclude every kid that went to RPT. And every kid who's worth their weight in polo goes to RPT. So I think the horse is bolted from that. And I think, and I might be wrong, Robbie, but the fact that they were still calling me, asking me what's going on with the tour, and they're quite high up at Swim South Africa, knowing my daughter had played in the winter series, I think they don't care anymore. It's just come to our Curry Cup and you can make a SA side. So I don't think you need to be as worried as you may make out to be. That's what I wanted to say.
I think that kind of like hard evidence is really important. You know, people are getting selected for these teams, even though they are registered for SA Water Polo. And I think that kind of information is really important. It's not for me to go and say what your kids must or mustn't do, but I believe that kind of exchange of information is vitally important for all of you. And I think that even what Warren was saying earlier, we've got the statistics of the players who have represented South Africa very recently, you know, at under 20 and open, and how many of those are registered with SA Water Polo, and we know that those guys weren't even always the first choice. And if you don't select those guys and you start to so let's move on to the positive side now, because this is quite interesting. So what's happened is the first major event that we had was the Winter Series. Now, I mean, can I just see hands up anyone who experienced the Winter Series in any way? Did you watch it on TV? Did you go to it? Did you okay? So I tell you guys, you might have missed out. You should have. You can still watch it on TV, but I mean, you go and speak to a player who played at that, and ask how they felt. We've got reams of messages of gratitude from players and parents and coaches saying that is the most professionally they've ever been treated in their lives. These guys each team had their own tent with physio, food, place to store their bags. Everybody got given kit. The price of the entry was 5,000 Rand. That got you your hotel, your airfare, your entry for the tournament, all your kit. Everything was paid for, 2 meals, the meals at the hotel, and then 2 meals out at night. That was the most phenomenal tournament that I think that people who have been to South African tournaments in the last 20 years, that is the most phenomenal tournament. And that's an annual event now. The SIG has committed to doing the same thing next year. You know, the intercom system, the big screen, the introductions to the players as they walked out, everything about that tournament was spectacular. And what we're wanting to say is that we're wanting to organize that level of tournament at all the tournaments that we organize. And we've got the Cape Town Invitational, the Joburg Invitational, the Nelson Mandela Bay Winter Series. And what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to have a State of the Origin Curry Cup here in KZN, because we believe each of the 4 major centers should host a big tournament, right? So that would be, where did you matriculate at school? You play for that province. And so that would be, because right now the balance of water polo power is, because of the universities and because of the economics of the country, people tend to congregate in Johannesburg for work or in Cape Town for university. And so that makes it a little bit unfair on the other provinces to try and compete. Like, how do you get a KZN side together when half your players are actually in Joburg or Cape Town? But what would happen then with the state of the origin is, where did you matriculate? And you play for that side. Now, the trick is going to be to practice together. But you know what? Go to Cape Town and practice with all your KZN mates, and that's how we're going to do it. Or we'll work it out. But that's one of the things we really want to get going well. Another thing for KZN that I think is really important, and I was discussing it with Dave at the Winter Series, is we need to get Premier League in all the provinces again. And to begin with, it's hard to find opponents when you've only probably got one side that you could get together from all the clubs. So what we're wanting to do is what we're proposing, and Cape Town have said that they've agreed this. Enter a KZN Premier League side into the Cape Town Premier League and fly down every 3 weeks and have your fixtures. Play 3 or 4 games on a weekend, have your fixtures, and then come back. And every 3 weeks you go to Cape Town and play your fixtures, and now you're playing. That's a start for competitive water polo back at Premier League in KZN. But we've got to get, each of these provinces has to start playing competitive water polo at club level again. One thing, any questions on league stuff and tournaments? Because I mean, that we're going to appoint, one of our director portfolios is going to be to get this stuff organized. So at the moment, we're a bunch of volunteers. We've got ideas, we've got thoughts, we've got funding. And we're talking about how we're going to do this. The guy who gets, or girl who gets elected as a director to do this is going to be handed over all of the information. They're going to be told to run with it and start trying to put the stuff in place. Question, yes, sir.
Question: is it sustainable? That sort of level of commitment to the thing. You know, you're going to start off with these promises that it's going to be run like this, and in future going forward, you know, do these tournaments just become more and more expensive and really more and more elitist actually?
No, the elitist, I'll talk to you about that. Talk to the elitist thing about it now. But in terms of the funding, let me answer the funding question first. So we've got, at the moment in the bank account, there's over 700,000 Rand sitting in the bank account. We've been given a huge amount of donations. We've got a lot of money for entry fees that was donated back to us and stuff like that. So we've got a huge amount of cash in the bank account right now with almost no expenses, because we're not drawing. We will start spending the money on the tournaments, and we're going to have to employ some people. We've also got a group of people who have agreed to back us. So we've said, right, it's going to be a 2-year process probably before we can attract proper sponsors. And proper sponsorship can only really come when you become the federation, and also when you've demonstrated good governance, when you've demonstrated audited accounts, et cetera, et cetera. So we're saying that there's going to be a 2-year period where we need money. And so if I just do top of the head stuff, if you can run a really good tournament for 500,000 bucks, we're going to have 4 of them. That's 2 million Rand a year, 2 years. We need 4 million Rand. We're a quarter of the way there almost with what we've got right now. And we've got people who are happy to donate, and they've indicated amounts, and I believe that we've got that stuff covered. In terms of the salaries and stuff like that, we're going to have a bit of a challenge, but I honestly believe that we've got the funding to maintain the momentum that we've got going right now, and it will increase and improve. I've spoken to a few corporates, and they're not in a position to fund us whilst we're fighting from South Africa. So as soon as that fight is over, and if we can demonstrate good governance, as I always keep saying, then we will get that funding. To let you know, on the 3rd of every month since we started in March, so the 3rd of April, 3rd of May, 3rd of June, I got my management accounts for SA Water Polo. Number of subscriptions paid, unpaid, geographical breakdown of where they've come from, age breakdowns. I get a set of management accounts, cumulative month, everything, on the 3rd of every single month. We've got proper corporate governance, and we're not going to back down from it. Yeah, yep.
Just fortunate for her that it literally, the winter series came about 3 days before she had to fly back. And there are numerous girls plus boys. Yeah. Her boyfriend would have loved to have played, but he was already back in the States.
Yeah.
How how are you going to bring those? Because those are the players that are playing, that are training 20 hours a week, playing 40 full, hard games, and those are the players that you want back helping out. And how are we going to incorporate those players? Because they come back for 3 months over their summer, our winter, they're back for a month over December, January.
Look, it's not going to be a popular answer. We're not. We can't. You can't build a program around a certain group of players. You build a program around the domestic side and develop. Now, there will be people, it's like the rugby. They don't do the rugby fixtures based on whether Andre Pollard can make it back in time for it. That doesn't work like that. So what we need to do is we need to concentrate hard on building up a really, really strong domestic program here. And the people who go and come overseas, I have the utmost admiration. They're going to bring back immense skills. They need to be part of the system, but we can't be changing dates to fit into them. We had a good example of that in the swimming context. 2 years before SA Masters swimming in Durban earlier this year, we had booked Kings Park. And so you only get a certain date. Then they decided that they're going to go and renovate Kings Park, so we couldn't use it in the end. But now all the mums and dads of all the kids who are swimming at age groups, they say, why is Masters on this date? I can't swim Masters because my kids. We had booked it 2 years in advance. So I've had so much experience with this scheduling that I think the only way to really get it right is that each province and each tournament needs to look at it. When does it suit those guys? And there will be casualties, unfortunately, but there will also be those who can attend. And if you can make a plan, you can, and if you can't, don't worry, you'll be there. And I'm not worried about those guys overseas, because I'll tell you what's the story about them. They're playing competitively twice a week, 3 times a week. They're in a program. They are developing. It's guys here who are not. You know, those are 4 tournaments. It's not as if we've got tournaments every weekend like they might have overseas. So it might not be the answer you want, but that's the way I think we're going to. Absolutely. So if we get it right, and we were discussing this earlier today, we need to put out our program as early as January for the whole year. So you almost need to be able to see 12 months in advance. And so that way people can start making better plans. And I guess it's as good as we're going to be able to get. I want to talk about development because actually it's one of our key things. This is what's happening in Nelson Mandela Bay right now, and I believe that this is what the blueprint should be for the rest of the major centers. SIG has gone to the municipalities and he's agreed with them. He's got his own water polo development club that he started. He's got over 100 members now. 80 of them were at the Winter Series. They received training from some of the elite players. We had a session on the Saturday where those guys for about an hour and a half or whatever, they were in the water with the best coaches in the country and the best players in the country, and they were getting exposed to that kind of level of play. They got to watch the games and stuff like that. That's part of a club that SIG has started in Nelson Mandela Bay. There's over 100 registered kids. He's negotiated free access to every municipal pool in Nelson Mandela Bay for all of those guys. As long as they show their membership or they prove membership, they can get free access to the pool. And what he's done is he's gone and put paid swimming and water polo coaches at the pools on certain afternoons. So those kids have access to free access to the pools, and if they go out at certain afternoons, they get free access to swimming and water polo coaching. Now, there's more development there than there's been in the last 20 years. But now you roll that out into every single province, and you start working with the municipalities. That means going and sitting with the municipal managers and sitting with the pool managers and stuff, saying, right, I've got this many kids, getting these coaches and employing them and putting them in place. Learn to swim first, learn to play polo second, and then that's how we're going to get these guys. Because this is my thing. It was one of my earlier questions. I was being a bit of a smart ass. How many people in this country? We're choosing from 2 million. And any of you who have watched the evolution of rugby, especially rugby sevens, saw that in 2013 when Neil Powell started taking all those guys, the Fijians had this recipe of these massive, big 6-foot-something guys who run fast and stuff. Neil Powell started bringing in these little guys from the Eastern Cape, and we brought the entire diverse sort of genetics of the South African population, and suddenly we started winning stuff that we were not winning with people that don't look like they should be competing against Fijians, but yet we've got them. And that's really what I believe. And as I said, I met with one of our Olympic swimmers, and we were talking And the comment was, swimming is not a thing that is like natural or genetic. It's learned. There is nothing about swimming that's natural. Some people are talented at it. I'm never going to dismiss that. But just in the same way, some people are more talented with a ball and a bat or at running faster or slower. There are talents, but it is not a genetic thing. This is something that you can learn if you get taught properly. And I'm telling you, I get angry when I think of the lack of exposure that so much of our population's had, because there are people out there who could be just as good as anyone else we've ever seen, and they've never even been given the chance. And that drives me mad and most of our board mad as well. We need to see that that changes now. And that's one of the big things for us. And that, so that's, I think it's important that people know that, because we're going to get accused of being white, racist, etc., etc. It's the exact opposite. I want to see everybody in this country get an opportunity to play. You don't have to play, because give me the opportunity to play rugby, I never will. I hated the sport. I can watch it, but I can't play it. Some people will love water polo, some won't. But those who love it, no matter what your background is, you should be given the opportunity to play it and be taught how to play it. Yeah. Sorry, I sounded angry there. I think I am a bit. Yeah. Any questions as to where we are now? You guys are quiet, eh? We should have got more beer. Yeah. Okay, let me just see if there's anything else on my list. No questions? Yes.
Explain, because I've had a few questions from parents and what have you, a bit of confusion around South African Water Polo and Duncan Woods' Elevate. Do you want to just explain what that is? Because I do a lot of explaining, but maybe on the streaming here we can just get it out for once and for all.
Yes. Partners. Now, if you think about how are we as an amateur sport and with amateur administrators, how are we going to run this thing properly? And the answer is that if we try and do it like it's always been done, you've got no chance. You've literally got no chance, because then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be relying on people volunteer time, and those volunteer fumes, they run out. People have to be able to make money out of water polo. And so what we believe strongly is that we want to engage with commercial partners. Let's start talking about things like coaching, refereeing. We already know Dion Willis in Cape Town has been running some very successful refereeing programs where he will put on a referee's clinic. He will advertise it to some schools or to clubs and stuff like that. He'll get some people in, and he'll have some World Aquatics accredited material that he will teach people about refereeing. People will pay, and that'll be exchange of information, and they'll be uplifted in how they referee. Why shouldn't we be doing that with coaching? Why shouldn't we be doing that with so many areas within the sport? Then if you think about a tour, so some of you guys might have been exposed to some good tours. Elevate might be one of them. There's been some very, very good Elevate tours. I'm sure there are other tour operators who take teams overseas, even if it's just your school. Anybody who wants to take a tour overseas, what we're wanting to do is we're going to say, right, there's going to be inbound and outbound tours. We need to invite tenders to take these tours. So imagine if you've got your own travel business and you've got your own travel business. We say, right, we've got a South Africa side that needs to go to Australia. We would like tenders to see who can take them. These are the criteria. And we will say they need to play these games, they need to enter this tournament, they need to stay in hotels of this quality, the budget needs to be X, Y, Z. We will put criteria. There will be safeguarding policies, there will be all kinds of things that we will put into that tender document and say, right, bring us your best tender. And if that happens to be Elevate, that's great. If it happens to be somebody else, that's also great. Whoever that is who actually comes with the best pitch on doing that and at the best price or the best quality, those guys should become our commercial partners. Now, this is what we need to be able to do to be able to run the sport, because if you do it like that, it's almost a pay-as-you-go. We're not using the subs from the guy who's playing club water polo in Nelson Mandela Bay to pay for an elite swimmer to go to Australia. The elite swimmer pays as much as he can, and if we get sponsorship for that tournament or for that trip or whatever, then we do it like that. That's the way we envisage getting these things right, and we're going to need commercial partners. Duncan has not put himself up to become a member of this board. He did not get proposed, and he denied any application that anybody wanted to put him on. He's got his business, he wants to run it, he wants to take outbound tours that are not related to SA Water Polo, and when we invite tenders, I am hoping to hell that he tenders, because I know that he runs a very, very, very good show. And if you will see that from the likes of Felipe Peroni and the guys that he's brought into this country, what a great business he's running. But I hope that multiple businesses rise up now and thrive in that exact same area. And why shouldn't we have businesses in KZN, Gauteng, etc., doing exactly the same thing? Because if we get this business, if we get this sport right, there will be a huge demand not only for national tours, but for school tours, for provincial tours, club tours. Why wouldn't it be like that? And I hope I've answered adequately there. Yeah, Peter.
So, a little while ago, we as KZN board had a meeting, and we have actually been one of the provinces that have followed Swimming South Africa the longest, and I have had many discussions with Robbie over the last little while why we are not, why we're sending teams and so on. And we decided as a board, as we were registered with KZN Aquatics and Swimming South Africa, that we would enter our CARICAP teams, we would support teams or programs that Swimming South Africa put out, that, for example, the Zimbabwe tours, and we would assist in registering the players. However, after Chris Reardon and I had a meeting with Swimming South Africa's, or the head coaches, and we asked for the plans for national teams, and we didn't receive any. And as you have seen also with the teams going out, there have been very little preparation. And we had a meeting as a board, and we decided to do what Schools Water Polo have done. And we've decided to go completely independent, and we will encourage any programs that come along, such as we're sending a team now to Cape Town Invitational, KZN team. And we will, if suddenly out of the blue a fantastic program comes, and Swimming South Africa in a year's time is still the federation that is sending teams, we will obviously consider to assist our players. But we can't just, we also felt like we came out of CARICAP and the men won that CARICAP tournament, which was great because KZN hadn't won a tournament for a very long time, but at the same time, it wasn't the tournament that it has been. I mean, Sean, you have been to many of these and probably even won them, and we just felt that it's important that we can send players to any event, and we have made this public, and exactly what Dave was saying, we haven't had any, or I haven't been contacted by anyone from Swimming South Africa, from anywhere, saying that I'm now banned or the board is banned or anything like that. So there's where we are. So that's we will, as a board, continue working on this and try and do as well as possible with what we can do.
Thanks, Pete. And Pete's been involved, and we've had lots of discussions. And whilst that is a view, I differ very strongly from that, because it perpetuates the fight, and it perpetuates the stalemate in my mind, because it doesn't take a principled stand one way or another. It doesn't. So I respect that people will have their views, but I'm also going to tell you when I don't agree with them, because I will tell you straight. And I strongly believe that here's the thing: we are a single water polo community. If we look at it like this, we are a community, right? We're a very small community at the moment. We need to grow it. But ultimately, when we do settle this, we need to come back together as friends, as people who play against each other and with each other, and for the benefit of the sport. And for as long as this fight continues, the danger is that it'll separate us, not join us. And so I want this thing to be done as quickly as we possibly can. I'll tell you a story. I've been getting a lot of messages from a group of friends of mine. Right now, there's a group of guys from Rondebosch Water Polo Club who've just come back from a holiday in Croatia. They've been playing water polo. These guys are in their mid to late 50s, some of them in their early 60s. They've been playing water polo together for 40 years. You'll have seen them when they started playing. They were playing first league. A lot of them played for South Africa. as they got older, they started playing Masters Water Polo for Rogues and for the Rondebosch sides that they've played. They play in the Cape Town League. They're still Premier League players. They are best mates. They've played together for 40 years. They've played against all of you who've ever played water polo. You know them very well. And they go on holiday with their mates and with their wives. They sit on a gulet. They go from island to island and they play organized games in Croatia. Now, that's a lifelong love of the sport with a group of mates. Now, they're living the dream as far as I'm concerned with water polo. They played a hell of a competitively. They went to world champs when they were younger. They've played and contributed at every single level. You'll see their names on all the committees. They're on the committees of SWPSA. They were on some South Africa committees in various times. They've been selectors, and they're now contributing here. Now, that, to me, is a great example of what water polo is actually about. You start off, you play competitively, you make a group of mates, you play together with your mates, you may join teams, go to other teams and stuff, but ultimately that's what it's about, for the benefit of the sport, and you pass the baton on later, right? So we're going to have to get to that point. For as long as this fight continues with us and SAWP South Africa, it's not even really a fight, it's just a way that we differ on how this thing's being done. For as long as that happens, we're going to polarize the community, and that has to stop quickly. And that's why I'm the one who will be saying to you, that sounds great, Pete, but it's going to perpetuate the bloody problem. And I would wish that you would have rather taken a principled stand one way or the other. But that's, you guys are in charge, and that's up to you. Yeah, Todd. So, are you involved yet in? No. With Water Polo South Africa, with SAWP, we're still with, yeah. Because I tell you, you've got to have these conversations with these are important conversations. You haven't had the conversation yet. Cheap as we've got an inbound tour from the top polo club in the world has contacted us and said, we want to come to South Africa. Can you host us? And that conversation stemmed out of these Rondebosch guys being in Croatia right now. There's a whole lot of mates they meet. Stemmed out of Duncan Woods' conversations with the guys in Spain. But we are looking at hosting the top water polo club in the world in a training camp in December. And that just then begs the question, if they're coming here, why don't we make it into a tri-nation, not tri-nations because it's club, but invite 2 or 3 other clubs and then start having a tournament. Why don't we choose a side from the Cape Town Invitational that'll play against those guys? Now, these are all the conversations that are ongoing right now. We've got inbound and outbound tour aspirations. We want to create outbound tours. There's been a development. It's too early really to talk about it now because we might actually say no, but we're considering something that's cropped up yesterday. There's an opportunity for an outbound tour that could be very, very exciting. But then we're doing what has been done by the Federation is we're sending an unprepared side. So what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to have training camps, we're wanting to have 6-month lead-ins, we're wanting to put together a 25-person squad for each of the men's and women's elite, and then we're going to have pathways from under 14, under 16. Duncan has developed a development program for under 14 through to Olympic Games for the elite swimmers. But bear in mind, there's elite polo players. There's a lot that we are talking about now, and I hope I'm not sounding vague because this is concrete, but at the same time, I'm not one to promise you, hey, we've got this tour that you can go on if you get selected out of the Cape Town Invitational. But we have to be catering for those needs if we're going to be attractive to anybody. How can we say that we're better than the Federation if we're not? Then we must just leave them. Yeah. 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 Yeah, same. Yeah. It has to be, and it almost has to rotate. So you say you start off with in January. Well, look, we start off with a Cape Town Invitation. You say, right, we've chosen a 25-person squad now, men and women, right? So if I start talking about men, don't get me on a sexist thing. I'll be talking about men, meaning women. It's both sexes, right? So you've got this. You choose a 25-man squad after Cape Town Invitational. After Gauteng Invitational, someone's had a shoulder op, someone else has given up water polo, and then the new guys come in, and he's come back from the States, your daughter's come back or something like that, and then the next thing is your squad has to rotate. But you've got to keep this squad, and then you've got to put out a calendar of inbound and outbound tours, and then you've got to say to them, right, this is the tournament that we're going to, and we can't just jump at the first invitation, because if we do, maybe we accept this invitation that came onto our radar like yesterday. We send people over to overseas and they end up paying $40,000. But actually what you wanted to do was you wanted to target the European Cup of Nations, say, for example. Or you've got this tournament that we're wanting to put together where you go and play in the States or something, and you end up playing against a bunch of colleges, and you can have a very, very rich 2 weeks or whatever the best thing would be to do. So we've actually got a... So look, bear in mind we formed in February this year, so we've got to get that stuff right. But I can assure you that it is absolutely on the cards, because there's no ways that we can purport to be doing it better, which is why we haven't applied to World Aquatics yet as well, by the way, because we can't demonstrate that we're doing it better yet. But if you were at the Winter League, or if you talk to people who were at the Winter Series, there's a marked difference between that and what's happened before. And I'm hoping that through our governance, through our selection processes, through the way we elect the board, through the way we do our constitution, even our communication, every single thing, the fact that I'm standing here and I'll answer your questions and whatever, have you had this before from the Federation? This is what we want to do every single way. Yeah. Not in the mix yet. But I also think that this is why we're doing these things, because we've also felt that the information didn't get out in certain provinces. It got out very strongly in Nelson Mandela Bay. SIG is completely, communicating every single thing to his entire community. It was quite strong in Cape Town, pretty strong in Cape Town, less so in Gauteng and KZN, which is why I've come here and which is why I went there. Yeah. So we want to address that. And so this is the other thing. If we've made a mistake, we'll fix it. Yeah. Yes, as you know, how do you address prejudice? No. I'm thinking aloud. Like, how do you address prejudice? Because that is just out and out prejudice. How do I address a situation where somebody says to me, "You're a white male. This is going to be a racist organization"? I'm putting my hand up. Does it matter where I come from? Does it matter what I look like? I'm putting my hand up to volunteer, and so were the other people. So everybody who wanted to could put their hand up to be nominated as a director. They can stand and get voted for. If this becomes a Western Cape thing, then I'll blame you flippin' people sitting here right now, because you didn't bloody vote, you didn't volunteer, you didn't put a nominated director. And if it is a Western Cape thing, what's the worst thing that can happen? Because frankly, I don't see this as a provincial thing. I'm from bloody Zimbabwe. I don't care. I played in that roundabout side. When my sons who were at SACS started playing league water polo, I went to SACS. The roundabout Oaks today, go and play at SACS. When you finish there, come back. When I played Masters, I played for Zimnat. I literally don't care. Why are we sitting here trying to get KZN to host a Currie Cup and to send a Premier League side down to Western Cape if we are here to get... Where has that got anybody in the past? Where was Gauteng water polo when the whole thing got concentrated to old OJs? The sport fell apart in Gauteng, right? If you love this sport, the first thing you need to do is you need to do what you can in your place, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, whether you're too old and you're an administrator, and at the very least you need to vote and be doing something. I know that it's not you, Todd, but I've got to tell you guys, if we get accusations along those lines, I promise you, I don't know how to deal with that, because that is an irrational thing. Why am I sitting here, fly myself up here to come and speak to you guys, and someone says, oh, this is a Cape Town thing, you know? How dare they, you know? Just because, yeah. So you know, if you're going to get, I mean, that selection, I don't want to, I mean, we had days, yeah, anyway, I don't want to go there because I'll get myself into trouble. But that selection thing is an issue. Warren selected sides from that, and basically he wasn't communicable, because what he was doing, he's got his app there, he's got his thing, he's taking statistics, he's watching the game, he's played the game for 40 years, he knows who scored anything. You say to him, Warren, who was the best player in that game? He can tell you why. How many assists, how many defensive things, how many contacts with the ball. And now that is how selection should be done. The nicest thing about that tournament was that there was no provincialism. There was no provincialism with the refs, there was no provincialism with the selections, and there was no provincialism with the teams. That's our biggest bloody enemy. You know, if you look at it in the professional rugby players, go and look at Ardie Savia and Sia Khaleesi. Ardie's kid runs up to Sia and says, Uncle Sia. You know, that's sport. They gave each other hell on the field. And then afterwards, it's for the sport, you know. And I'm sorry, we've got to get ourselves out of this provincialism. We absolutely have to. My sons went to Sachs. I loved watching them play, but my nephew went to Clifton. You know, I loved watching them play. You know, we've got to get out of that stuff, man. And I tell you, it starts with you giving them shit when they tell you that. You hear that, you say, that's not on. Because this is a national this is a national body. This is not about provincial stuff. How can we purport to serve the sport at a national level if we can't look above provincialism? Yeah, I'm sensitive. I am sensitive. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good question as well. Yeah, you're right. We're going to have to do it properly. It's going to have to be done professionally, properly, openly, transparently. And if anything we've done up to this point is worth looking at, you should see that actually that's probably how we will approach it. And if we don't challenge us on it, you won't be disciplined. And if we're getting it wrong, we will be fired. Yeah. We'll be held accountable for that. Yeah. Did you ever? Yeah.
Hi, Robbie. So, Todd, I think what's going on now in 6 months is a lot more positive that's been going on for 20 years or 30 years in this country. And I'm afraid you're at the stage where you most probably won't see the benefit properly of what's going to happen going forward if we back this, okay? And it's a sad thing because there is going to be that lost generation that have had to put up with the nonsense from Swimming South Africa. But if we don't back this, support it, what chance have these guys got of taking control of water polo? Okay, that's the biggest thing. And understand, we're not talking about sports politicians running our sports. We're talking about water polo people running our sports. And to me, I come from a life-saving background, played polo but got sucked back into polo for my sins at the moment. And Robbie, I don't know, you must probably have heard, but we are a very dysfunctional province, I'm sorry to say. And no disrespect to the people that have put the effort and time in for nothing. We have 2 proper clubs in this province. 2 proper clubs. The rest are academies put together. And you know what, guys? I grew up in the era of DHS Old Boys, Glenwood Old Boys, Queen's Park, Pinetown Old Boys, etc., etc. where we used to go to the beach bars and proper water polo was played. There would be 1,000 people around that pool watching polo. Okay? And this province needs to wake up and get its house in order. Okay? It is like pulling teeth. There is so much politics. This one doesn't talk to this one. This one hates this one. I think we're getting rid of some of that, thankfully, at the moment. But guys, if we want to survive as a province and as a sport in this province, we need to work together. And I'm talking as an outsider who's come in after 35 years of being involved in life-saving. What I've experienced in the last 2 years of water polo makes life-saving look like a Cinderella sport. Life-saving is as strong as it is, and Robbie, you've seen it in Cape Town, PE, clubs. Clubs make sports organizations. We need to revitalize and get clubs going in this province and feed into this system here. Guys, you don't like what I say, it's no skin off my nose. I'm happy to volunteer, I'm happy to be involved. And it can be done because we've done it in the last 2 or 3 years. And if we don't back this 100%, we're back with those goons running the swimming organization. Robbie, just out of context, I don't know if Pete and Chris and them have explained to you, but we have a big problem in this province. Our swimming, what's it, Aquatics KZN or whatever it's called, is under administration and in the hands of a certain former demigod of water polo. He controls us on our own affairs, but we don't actually have a KwaZulu-Natal Aquatics Committee. They stole the money and ran, okay? And so we're in a no man's land scenario. And I think I've got to give Pete his due because he's played the politics very carefully, because we could be closed down tomorrow by Swimming South Africa. They could easily walk in and say, Yokes are not recognized, you're out, done, finished. While we don't have a KZN Aquatics Committee, we're a bit stuck. So that is one of our biggest issues. And I'm afraid the administration of KZN Aquatics is now under the umbrella of Swimming South Africa.
So, you know, it's that, yeah, Cape Town, Duncan Woods is the chairman of Cape Town Water Polo, and they had a meeting and they just said, we're running it on our own. So it doesn't matter what happens above them. They just said, right, we're running it on our own now. From now on, anybody who wants to play league in water polo needs to be a member of SAWP, and that's it, done. They made a decision, one committee meeting. We explained it to Pete and Chris. They did it in one committee meeting. They said, right, that's it. We are no longer under the auspices of anybody else. They can't close you down. Because once you've decided that you're running your own show, you run your own show. It's the same guys. So the same guy who organized the leagues, the same guys who organized and allocated the refs to the tournaments, the same club coaches, the same everybody, instead of reporting through to the federation, they just said, we're changing. And it was a decision made by Duncan and the executive, and the next thing, switch on, switch off, flag up, flag down. The whole thing's running, they didn't even miss a beat. If you spoke to an uneducated water polo participant in the clubs and winter leagues and summer leagues in Cape Town, they wouldn't even have known that there's been a change. The same guys doing the same thing, but now no longer being told by whoever what to do with the funds and stuff. Brett opened a separate bank account, bang, the money's now in a different place, and that's it. Done. We've broken away. Yeah.
Except that we have to do it in the right way.
That's your decision.
So we are
as
working
I said,
towards
Pete,
exactly the
we will
the
disagree
way.
on that forever,
No,
Pete, because
no,
if you say we do it in the right way, you haven't actually done it yet. And the way that Cape Town did it, they have done it, and it's working. We've just had a successful winter league. I was playing in the tournament. The summer league starts now. The teams have started. Everything is absolutely functioning perfectly. So you say there's one way of doing it, which is what's going on now, and I'm hearing that it's not working. And there's another way of doing it, which has been done and it's worked. So I disagree respectfully. But guys, and I've got the mic, so I'm louder. But so let me do this now because it is time. We've gone on quite a lot longer. We can switch off the cameras, gents, if you don't mind. We'll stop the streaming. I'm going to stay here as long as you need. We can have a social. We can sit around and we can talk. We can debate. You guys can chat amongst yourselves, and I'll answer any questions further. But I think the formal side of it needs to probably stop now. And then those who have obligations, you're free to walk out without causing any offense or whatever. I think before I do that, let me just say maybe 2 or 3 more questions, because I can't just suddenly stop it without giving at least 1 or 2 guys to ask a question. Yeah. Any questions? I will stay. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, listen. From me, thank you for coming and listening. Thanks for participating. Thanks for having some tough conversations. Don't forget, at the end of all this, we have to be mates. Yeah. And that's with all the provinces, with all the players. Doesn't matter what you believe in now, doesn't matter the decisions that you take, whether you're going to go for Swim South Africa and represent South Africa, or whether you're going to take another stand and say, I'm not going to do that. Don't criticize people for what they do. You can put your position forward, but once it's put forward, that's enough. And they can put theirs forward. Don't argue about it, because that'll destroy the relationships. We're not about that. We're not about that. But we are principled. Yep. Yeah, Warren will have to tell you. But there's, on the website, it's there, and you can join this. There are things. And thank you for that. Yeah. Anything further? Warren, want to say anything before we go? Thank you, guys. Thanks very much. Thanks a lot.